Let's get to a subject of national importance. Yeah, Tim Hortons. So when I saw the headline, scrolling through your news media, federal government looking into Tim Hortons, I was like, oh my God, they're finally going to do something about the donuts. It's about time. And then I said to myself, the last time I went to Tim Hortons, I was trying to buy donuts for my dad. He wants donuts. And they were out of donuts. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, we don't have donuts. Sorry. I was like, how's that possible? So when I said, ooh, federal government, they're looking into Tim Hortons, immediately I said, okay, they're going to do something about the donuts. No. The Federal Privacy Commissioner's investigation into the Tim Hortons mobile app found that the app unnecessarily collected extensive amounts of data without obtaining adequate consent from users. How'd this happen? Our next guest, retailing reporter for the Globe and Mail, has been all over this story. Susan Krashinsky Robertson is on the line. Susan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, first things first. Maybe we should get to just how important mobile apps are for fast food chains right now.
They're extremely important. And Tim Hortons has talked about this in its presentations to investors. Its mobile app has actually grown much more popular from the time that this investigation was launched, when it covered about 1.6 million users. They say that they've now got more than 4.3 million people who use that app at least once a month. That's more than 1 in 10 Canadians who use this. So it's an extremely important marketing vehicle for the company, and the similar thing applies to any other of these fast food companies who have similar apps. You can process payments, you can order ahead. It's a way to stay connected to their customers, but it's also a way to send their customers promotions, encourage them to come back more often. And Tim Hortons has said in presentations to investors that people who are engaged with it digitally, they visit the restaurants a lot more often. They spend a lot more on average every year. So these kinds of apps are extremely important to retailers.
Susan, I mentioned it off the top of this hour. I was teasing up this segment because it's Tim Hortons and it matters to so many people. You mentioned the numbers just for their app, right? And I said this, now, today, June 2022, I don't order from a fast food restaurant if they don't have a good app. That's just how it is now, right? It's becoming table stakes here, and I would imagine the 4.3 million is just going to grow exponentially here. So, Susan, what were they doing with the app that was that's suspicious here? What have we been finding out?
So this all started back in 2020, and it started actually with a journalism report from a great reporter over at the National Post who used Canadian privacy laws to request all the data that Tim Hortons had on him as a user of the app. And the article that he wrote really kicked off this investigation because it found that the app was tracking him even when it was not in use. It was detecting when his device was moving. It was showing his location when he was at home, when he was at work, even when he went on vacation and was thousands of kilometers away from a Tim Hortons in another country. It was tracking his location. And so that report, which was really excellent, caused the privacy commissioners to get together and look deeper into this. And they found that indeed, the app was tracking people who used it, gathering their location data hundreds of times a day, even when it was not in use. And they found that this actually was misleading, that they misled many users by suggesting they would only be gathering that information while the app was in use. So Tim Hortons has said that it scaled back on tracking users' locations when this all came out in 2020, after it was revealed to the public. But the privacy officials said yesterday that the company's contract with its third-party location services supplier, this U.S.-based company called Radar Labs, which helped it build this software, that contract actually contained language that could have allowed Radar to sell de-identified, so anonymized location data. And the reason that's a problem is that many reports have suggested that de-identification, anonymization is not really anonymous. It can really be easy to re-identify this data. And so it carries a risk that this can be linked to individuals.
Well, it certainly sounds like the app was collecting more data than Santa Claus collects on children ahead of Christmas time, right? With what you're doing and where you are and all of that. Now, I guess I got to ask you, when we open up our mobile apps now, right? So often they say, okay, do you want to agree to this? This app wants to track your location. Do you agree, yes or no? What we're hearing about the Tim Hortons app is that regardless of what you were telling your app in the settings to do, it was still taking the info, the data?
Well, I think actually much more importantly, it wasn't so much that. It was more that the app wasn't telling you adequately what it was doing. And so this is a really important concept under privacy law in Canada. It's a concept known as meaningful consent. So you don't have to just agree to what something is doing. You have to meaningfully agree, which means actually understanding what kind of tracking is being done on you. So if you don't understand that adequately, if you are just given a 20-page list of terms and conditions and it's buried somewhere in the fine print and you just click OK, a lot of privacy advocates say that does not count as meaningful consent. And much more in this case, what's the problem is that as this investigation found, adequate information was not provided. So users really didn't have the chance to review what it was that they were agreeing to, and that's a very important violation of privacy law.
We're with Susan Krashinsky Robertson, a reporter for the Globe and Mail, talking about the Tim Hortons mobile app and some issues that have been discovered with data collection within the app. Now, Susan, let me just put it out there. I like to put my cards on the table. I don't like Tim Hortons anymore. It's been so long where I'm just like, I don't like the food. The coffee's not that good, so I haven't been using it. But let me tell you something. You know what I do love? I love me a Whopper. And it's the same company, right? Restaurant Brands International, right? And they've got Popeyes as well. Now, I know this is about Tim Hortons, but, you mentioned third-party providers and all that. Can we extrapolate from this Tim Hortons example that it's not just the Tim Hortons app? There are other brands from the same company and maybe the other guys as well that are doing the same thing?
You absolutely can. Absolutely. And not just the brands, as you mentioned, that are owned by Restaurant Brands International, which is the parent company that owns Tim Hortons. This is happening across the ecosystem. And that's something that Federal Privacy Commissioner Daniel Terrien emphasized during his news conference yesterday, that really what happened here, he said, it's happening across the marketplace, and that's a big problem. And one of the things that the privacy commissioner talked about was that because it's happening across the marketplace, he really feels that privacy officials need more powers to investigate companies, not just when there's smoke to look for fire, but to proactively investigate. So he talked yesterday about the fact that under the current framework in Canada, privacy officials, they really need to be able to see some evidence that there might be wrongdoing before they can launch an investigation, which is why investigations like this frequently come out of journalism reports. The same thing happened in the case of Clearview AI. If you remember the investigation into the facial recognition company, that also came out of reports. And so what he was saying yesterday was, it's not enough to be reactive. In this kind of an environment, privacy officials need more powers to proactively investigate and oversee these companies so that there's more trust in the digital ecosystem. And he's been beating this drum for his entire tenure. He's actually just leaving the post as privacy commissioner, and he's been beating this drum since he got there, and so have many other privacy officials. But they have been talking about how, the framework in Canada, it's not sufficient to protect consumers. And one thing that is really worth watching is that the federal government, before the last election, they did table an update to Canada's private sector privacy law, which is now more than 2 decades old and widely seen as being totally out of date for the current, world we live in. And they are planning to retable legislation that died on the order paper with the last election. They're planning to retable some legislation. So it's going to be really important to watch what they propose when they retable that legislation for a broader framework to protect people.
There's got to be some action here politically. Susan, I love talking business with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Susan Krashinsky Robertson from the Globe and Mail.